Welcome to Phil Wilson Chats with Celebrities. And here's your host, Phil Wilson.
A Kind of Calm is the brand new album from singer-songwriter Craig Joyner, released by Molano Music. It features the fabulous single, The Wedding Day of Eliza May, and Craig joins me now to tell us about it. How are you doing, Craig?
I'm very well, Phil. Thank you very much for having me, man. Thank you.
No problem at all. No problem at all. After hearing your single, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I managed to catch the video as well for it, which is a beautiful story. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Okay, no worries.
Now, you started in music at the same age as I did. My first radio show at the age of 15.
Yeah.
And played your first gig at the Celeb Folk Club in Hemel Hempstead.
Yeah.
Were there sweaty palms like me, or were you cool as a cucumber?
No, probably sweaty palms and very nervous. I remember, I don't even know if my voice had broken at that point. So I was probably, it was probably me doing a John Denver song up there. but yeah, oh crikey, yeah. I mean, there's always a bit of nerves at any gig. For me, I don't know about you, but there certainly is for myself.
Oh, definitely.
Without nerves, you'd be a little unusual, really.
That's right. I know. I mean, it's even when I just do a radio program or even an interview with yourself, you have a little bit of butterflies in the stomach, and I think that helps actually because it's like it means you're alive.
Absolutely, and it means you care.
That's right. Exactly. That's what it is. It means we care. Now, was the guitar the first instrument you played as a youngster?
It certainly was. Yeah, my gran bought me one when I was 6. She went to Spain and came back with one, and
wow.
And I used that until I was probably about 11, 10 or 11, and then my dad took me to the local music shop, Hammond's, in Watford. And he bought me my first guitar there, which was fantastic. I love the thing. I had to put it on a stand in the corner of the room and just keep looking at it just to make sure it was still there. And now I've loved the guitar ever since I knew what one was, even before the age of 6. When they say, "Oh, what are your earliest memories?"
Yes.
And my earliest memories are knowing that I loved guitars and knowing that I wanted to play a guitar. And that's never changed. I can go and do gigs and come back and, get home at 2 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing I do would be make a cup of tea and get my guitar out and carry on, And so it's never changed. It never changed.
And you can relax as well, I suppose, there. You've got your cuppa there and you can just,
do right.
Do a little bit of finger picking or whatever you fancy. And
songs come floating past and you got to grab them out of the air.
Exactly, you do. That's right. Well, Kevin Devine, who I interviewed a while back, I don't know if you know of him. He used to be a person who was on the That's Life program on BBC television.
Okay, yeah.
And he's got that kind of vibe going on where you've got when you're performing, like when you're writing a song or you're just doing a bit of a jamming session, and you've got to grab those. Those songs as they come by. He's used that. You reminded me of him because he does the similar kind of thing, which is it must be fantastic having that kind of inspiration when you're just like relaxing, playing a bit of music there. And
well, I think with the songwriting thing, if you are a songwriter, you never stop thinking about it. So if somebody says something when you're out, that is, I could use that for a song. So you'll write it down or put it as a voice memo. And you've just got to be available that when those songs do come flying past, you've just got to be available to be able to grab them at that point and make the best out of it. And sometimes it's not as easy because you're in the car or something like that, and you're driving. But generally, you just got to be available. And I think if you talk to any songwriter, they've got their own way of doing it, and of writing songs. Sometimes people will sit in a room for hours and hours until something happens. And then you get someone like, Elton John will say, if it doesn't come within the first hour, that's it, it's out, or I put it away and save it for another time,
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting process, I have to say, very interesting.
Definitely. Now, is there an instrument you would love to play but never have?
Um, uh, I dabble in a few. Like, for instance, I've got a mandolin. I play the mandolin a fair bit. Any stringed instruments, I'll have a go. I've got a violin, but the intonation does bug the hell out of me. So, not I can make definitely make a sound,
Right.
but I'm in awe of violinists and who can really intonate properly. But I suppose the piano. I can dabble with the piano, but I've
Right.
never really got into it. And I think piano is also really good for guitar players because it strengthens your fingers. And but I never really I was never drawn to it. If ever I was
No.
going to write a song, it would always be on the guitar. And I always think, and it's funny with guitar playing as well and any instrument, because if you do write, practicing is a strange thing because you think, right, I'm gonna practice today. I'm gonna
Yeah.
practice,
Yeah.
and you start, and within 10 minutes you're writing. Whereas there'll be a lot of other guitar players that'll be like, right, I'm practicing today, and for 7 hours they'll practice straight, and that'll be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think when you write, then you tend to, the minute you start writing, it's like first thing in the morning when I wake up. Generally, if I'm in that mode, so you're writing mode, so
Yeah.
you go down, have a cup of chai, you put the phone on the side, and then you pick guitar up, and even the first three chords and the melody that you choose to go on those three chords, which will be anything, straightforward. GCD can be really
Yes.
straightforward, but if you, for some reason, your brain hasn't engaged yet, and the first melodies that you come up with plus the chords that you're using,
Yeah.
5 minutes later, those chords and that melody seem totally different. You think, oh, I've had enough of that, and I'll put it away.
Yes.
And then a day later, you'll come back and listen to it, and you'll listen to the first 30 seconds, and you'll realize that what you did was totally different to what you were doing 5 minutes ago, 5 minutes later.
Yes.
And it's just a really odd process. Your brain definitely has to get out of the way of it sometimes.
So you'll certainly have a catalogue of tunes there that maybe you'll bring out one day if you're stuck for a song.
Absolutely. I've got
You can just
shed loads. It's like hits the floor, which is great, but sometimes I go through them and it takes you a while and you listen to them and you think, what was I thinking? Oh, that's off the list,
Yes, get that one deleted.
Yeah.
Archive that one.
Yeah.
Now, your musical journey began back in 1987 when your band Romeo's Daughter was signed to Jive Records and released the band's debut album a year later.
Yeah.
The self-titled album was produced by the legendary Robert Mutt Lange, who has worked with Def Leppard, The Cars, AC/DC, Shania Twain, to name but a few, and spawned a whirlwind tour of the USA. And so the single Don't Break My Heart shoot up the Billboard Hot 100 singles charts there. What was it like, the first taste of fame in the big pond?
I wouldn't call it fame, but I would definitely call it a shift in where we had been playing. So, for instance, I'm from the Watford St Albans area, and we did a gig at the Horn of Plenty in St Albans.
Right.
And we had this lady, Olga Lang. She came and saw us play with a view to managing us.
Right.
So she came, she saw us, we sat down, we all got on great, and she agreed to manage us. So we did that gig, and then we didn't play for, I don't know, probably about a year.
Right.
And then we started recording the demos with John Parr.
Wow.
And then after we'd done those demos, we took those demos. Mutt agreed to do a few bits and pieces on them, so we took them to Mutt and we sat down and we worked with Mutt. And then when the album was released, the first gig we did was we did a couple of warm-up shows, but the first main gig we did was the Marquee in London in Charing Cross Road.
Right.
And we stood out on that stage. We had no clue how many people were there because we didn't look.
Right.
And we walked out on the stage to an absolute rammed gig. And
wow.
That was like, my God, how did that happen? How did that happen? And in those days, there was no Facebook, no internet. And so putting a gig out and making people aware of that was postering. You know,
Yes.
companies would poster the gig and put it in papers and put it in Time Out, put it in the NME and Melody Maker and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And before you know where you are, you'd start seeing your poster, you know, and you just think, how did that happen? How did that happen? You know, all of a sudden you've got a record and you've got somebody incredible like John Parr and Mutt Lang, you know, producing it
Yes.
and writing with you. And it's, yeah, you have to pinch yourself. You know, I have no clue, you know, how it went from the Horn of Plenty in front of 50 people, you know, to working with them and it all coming to, you know, having an album in front of you that you can look at and very odd, Phil, but beautiful as well.
Absolutely fantastic. I know I'll have to have a hunt for that album somewhere. I bet it's with a mint on vinyl.
It did make me laugh because a mate of mine, Leon, he phoned me up the other day and he said, I found your album. And I said, really? He said, yeah, it was in an antique shop. I said, you're joking. I said, not even an antique record store. He said, no, an antique shop. I said, well, it's definitely, I had a laugh with him because I said, it's definitely an original because the original ones had this like orange tint to them. And I said, That's definitely an original there. You get that, it'll be worth a fortune one day.
That's right, especially with your signature on it as well.
Well, it's the same old line. If you get one that's unsigned, it's worth a fortune.
Yes, I love that story. I love it. Now, being produced by Mutt would have been fabulous, as you say. What was it like recording then? Because it was all on tape.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot more enjoyable. I mean, I love recording, but there's nothing quite like going into a studio and recording in a studio, because the things that happen at home and that happen in the studio are totally different.
Yeah.
You know, your whole mindset of being in a studio and working that way gives rise to so many different things, you know, sounds, the ability to be able to make noise and not worry about it, you know, and you think in a different way. And when we were working with Mutt, I mean, that happened all the time because he made you think in a totally different way. I mean, so many people used to say to me, you know, what's it like working with Mutt? And I would always say, well, it was the best thing ever. You know, it was the best thing that ever happened to us as a band. Whereas, you know, he used to get quite a lot of grief for being this real hard taskmaster, you know, and being like so on it. And he was. There's no two ways about it. You know, when you thought you'd done a take and then he'd say, you can do that one more, you know, and you think, God, I thought I nailed that. But then you listen to what he says and what you focus in on, and it's totally different. And it was incredible, you know, it really was. And it was a shock to the system. No two ways about it. With Mutt, I mean, Mutt was incredibly easy to work with. You know, I found him so anyway, because in the music, when you got people trying to communicate with each other, it's sometimes very, very difficult to actually understand your point of view and where you want things to go. Whereas he just had this knack of being able to say, this is how it should be.
Yes.
And then he would do it and sing it and you would understand it. Yeah. And for me, that was a gift in itself, you know, and I from that point of view, that alone made me understand why he'd had so many massive records, you know.
Yes, a guy with great ideas as well. I spoke to a gentleman called Richard Anthony Hewson, who did a lot of producing and orchestration and such like, and he said that Phil Spector, when he worked with him, he was a little bit like, you know, he knew what he wanted and he was a little bit abrupt, but he would be doing it so the sound would be there that he wanted out of the musicians or out of the singer and such like. So I think your story there about Mutt being kind of like that as well, no wonder he's had so much success.
Absolutely. And always the whole theory of, there was a big saying back then, which is still probably quite prevalent now, but not maybe quite as much, because there's so much inside what they say inside the box, inside the computer.
Yes.
But then, you know, you had that massive desk that you were working on, but it was very, very important to get the sound at source. So the sound that it wasn't a question of fix it in the mix. No. Whereas a lot of people went for that kind of way of thinking, but I'll bang it down, we'll sort it out later. His approach was very much get the sound right,
Yes.
get the backing vocals sounding right, and then we can build on that. So that initial sound, getting that initial sound, mic placement, on the cabinet, mic placement, the right mic for the vocal, very important. And I've lived with that ever since, Consequently, it means that I don't have that much gear. I've just got a couple of mics and a couple of preamps, and that's about it,
That's right.
And everything else is just the gear, the mic, the amplifiers, and
exactly.
and the acoustic, and where you place that acoustic, on the microphone, to get that sound,
Yeah.
It's incredible learning experience, one I've never, ever, ever lost,
No, and I think, and youngsters now, when they're growing up, they're thinking, my goodness, if they're picking up a record, when you were in the studio, you were actually making the music in order for it to go on the vinyl format, because there wasn't any CDs until about, people didn't start releasing stuff on there until about 87, was it, in any case? That kind of time. So people now, when they're buying vinyl and things, they've now got to appreciate that people like yourself there was there, getting all of the right sound that you can put the needle on the record now.
Oh, yeah. And people are still doing that. I mean, the crazy thing about that situation is people are still working so hard to get good sounds and good sounding records. And then everybody listens to them on their phone and on a laptop and as an MP3. So, when you think that a WAV is like, I don't know, anything up to 90 megabyte. And an MP3 is what, 7?
Yes.
8, 9?
Something like that.
All that stuff has just been swept out of it,
It does.
What's the point,
Exactly.
At least on a record and a CD, you had that sound quality, didn't you?
That's right. And I'm going to be talking to you about that a little bit later on. Now, do you have any funny stories from the 80s while you were recording the album?
Oh, God, there was things happening all the time. John Parr was incredibly vocal about what he was doing. Right. And he was nowhere near as calm as Mutt. And he would... we used to have some incredible conversations, Lee, our singer, she was always a bit finger and thumbs, and she was forever spilling bottles of Coke onto the music console. And there's loads of different bits and pieces, over the years where you'd fall over on stage and twist your ankle. You do something that you think would be incredibly cool, and it would just end up making you look like a total and utter Burke.
But you just carry on there going, oh, I'm not in pain. Yeah, we'll just finish.
I know. Oh God, yeah. I did that once when I first got my first radio system with the guitar, and it just so amazing. And I don't know what possessed me, but I thought, oh, wouldn't it be good to sort of come off the stage and walk through the audience? And as I got back as I got off the stage, I literally jumped off and twisted my ankle like you wouldn't get your breath. So I had to hobble back on stage. Talk about humble pie. I swear to God. Or that old thing they used to do in the 80s where you used to throw the guitar, around your neck.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And then the headstock caught the back of my leg and snapped the neck off.
Oh, but no.
Swear to God. All in the efforts to look cool, but no.
Excellent. Great stories there. Now, you've written songs for some of the best in the business, such as Bonnie Tyler and The Wonderful Steps, and played session guitar for Tom Jones, Jane Wiedlin, and also Peter Collins. What was it like being invited to play on songs by these well-known artists? And could you tell us which songs you played on?
Right, okay. Well, Steps... we had a song on the first Romeo's Daughter album that was called Stay With Me Tonight, and I wrote that one, strange enough, I wrote that in the bath.
Right.
And I came out of the bath and thought, this is a good idea. And it was really, I loved Stay With Me Till Dawn, Judy Zook.
Yes, beautiful song that is.
And it kind of came off the back of listening to that. And I wrote that song as a ballad. And then when we did it on the album, we did it at double speed. So we had this, it was the same tempo, but it was a double. We doubled the feel of it.
Yes.
And when we'd finished the record, and a couple of months later, I was talking to Mutt, and he said, you know what? He said, I think I might have messed up a little bit. I think we should have done that as a ballad. He said, so why don't we'll re-record that as a ballad,
right,
and then we'll see if we can get a cover on it. And I said, okay. So that's what we did. We literally recorded the whole song again as a ballad, and Steps picked it up, and which was fantastic, you know, because they were riding high at the time. It was on their first album.
Yes.
That was amazing. The same thing happened, a similar kind of thing happened with Bonnie Tyler, because I think Mutt being involved as well. I mean, Craig Joyner, nobody knew who Craig Joyner was, but everybody knew who Mutt Lang was. So I was kind of riding in on the coattails of that situation. It's like we had another one called Wild Child, which Heart, the band Heart did.
Right.
And, again, they were very much in tune with what Mutt was doing. I mean, to the point where they had another song written by Mutt on that particular album of theirs called Brigade. But it was an amazing thing, you know, because I mean, you'd have a song on there that you'd written with Mutt Lang. Your name was next to his. You know, a couple of months later, Heart have had such a big hit with their album. I mean, Wild Child reached, I think it was number 2 in the playlist chart for the Billboards.
Wow,
and they ended up not releasing it as a single purely because it had been played on the radio so much already.
Right. And
then you turn up at the record company and they give you a couple of gold discs. I think you can see it there.
Yes, I can. Beautiful. That.
And lovely. They get, you know, it was a platinum disc, and you just think, crikey, this can't, how's this happening, you know? Yeah. But it is an amazing thing. And I have to say, at the time, the connection with Mutt did make things an awful lot easier to get songs out there. And,
right.
So, you know, if I'm totally honest, you know, that's exactly what the situation would have been. You know, but, you know, at the time as well, you know, your hand in writing those songs was just as important. So.
And what about Tom Jones? What track did you play on his?
Tom Jones, crikey, I can't remember. I'll be honest with you, Phil. I can't remember. No. Tom Jones was signed to the same music label, Jive.
Yes, right.
And I did a song. I just played on a song from that album, and God, it was ages ago, mate.
Was it when he did an album in the late 80s?
Yeah, he did the Kiss, the Kiss cover.
Yes. With Art of Noise, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And it was on that same album.
Right. Okay. I was thinking, did you play on I Didn't Say Goodbye? That was about 1990. No. That I think.
I don't think it was that one.
No. I think that was on a quite cheap label, actually. I think they were on Dover. I think it was.
Really?
Dover Records. Yes.
Dover Records.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you heard of them before? No. They've probably just disappeared after that.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do well with that song in any case.
Right.
But it is a nice tune, though.
Yeah.
It is a nice tune. Now, you have had your music featured in movies such as A Nightmare on Elm Street, 102 Dalmatians, and Jack Reacher among them, and on TV's Friends, Cold Feet, European Golf, and by Disney. What was it like being featured, and did it come by surprise?
Well, when Romeo's Daughter, because Romeo's Daughter split in about 1993,
right.
And I'd met loads of people at Jive Records and Zomba Publishing. They had subsidiary labels called Chapel and Bruton, and they primarily what they did was library music. So that was all underscore music for TV.
Right.
The guy that I'd got to know, Jez Paul, he said to me, you know, you should do a library album. And I said, I'd love to do one. I said, but I've got all these bits I'm doing with Romeo's at the moment. So as soon as it's done, he said, as soon as it's done, let me know and we'll do it.
Yeah.
And I did one in 96. That was the first one I did. And I had no idea what it was going to sort of, you know, the path it was going to take, because Romeo's had come to an end and I was a little bit like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know?
Yeah.
And then this turned up and then I've literally spent the last, 30 years doing that. and with other stuff as well.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's been fantastic. You know, I write. They give you a rough idea what the album wants to sound like, and then they just say, right, off you go, and you write 10 songs or 10 underscores or 15 underscores, you know, that relate to the kind of music that they want to hear, and then you put it out as an album. So it was wonderful when you heard it on the telly, or when you saw where it was being played, because
Being used.
I had a wonderful run in the 90s with Oprah and Ricky Lake.
Right.
Was it Gerardo and all those sort of
Oh,
people,
yes.
you know, on the talk shows. And
Yes.
yeah, it was fantastic, you know. And as I say, listening to some of the music on Friends and things, you know, every now and then because Friends was massive in the 90s, wasn't it?
It was very
And
much
you'd be
so.
watching it, and then you think, oh, I recognise that. Why do I know that song? You know, and
It's
that could be
yours.
your stuff, you know. And now I think I've got about something like, I don't know, 500 tracks out there, something like that.
Wow.
Because they don't ever stop being used. They just
No.
they're always available. And so yeah, I've got a couple of companies that I work for, Universal being one and Zone being the other. And yeah, we just carried on doing that kind of stuff. It's brilliant because you get to work with a lot of different producers, a lot of different engineers, work with a lot of string quartets in the time, which is a wonderful thing, you know, and different drummers, you know. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You know, I definitely can't complain.
Excellent. And have you got any TV themes on at the moment? Because I've heard that you've wrote some TV themes as well.
There's one which is we've been going for a long time, which is Would I Lie to You?
Yes, indeed.
So
Fabulous.
we've had that for a while. I was with a band for a long time, a covers band, and I got Universal to come down and listen to us. And they said, oh, because they wanted to do an album called Guitar Revival, and they wanted to make it really raw and punky.
Right.
And I said, well, look, you know, he said, have you got a band that you could use? And I said, well, I work in a covers band. How about you come down and have a listen to that and see what you think?
Yeah.
So they did, and we just wrote a load of tunes for that. And the Would I Lie to You theme was one of them. And it's stuck ever since.
Amazing.
So I'm quite chuffed with that, because I think it's as part of the program as the program, you know. So it's really quite good, actually. I'm really chuffed with that. Yeah.
Excellent. And you'll probably be getting your nice repeat fees there, are you?
Yeah, I mean, it does work quite nicely.
Because is it Ray Monk, or it's not Colin Monk, is it, that does who wrote the theme tune for This Morning?
Oh, right, okay.
Well, I think he every time that.
Every time it's
plays,
played, ka-ching.
That's it.
I remember when I first started playing, they were because when I first started playing, they were turning all the vinyl into digital.
Yes.
And they had a whole stack of stuff from like the 60s and the 70s of this old stuff that they were revitalizing and making digital, remixing this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And or remastering, should I say?
Yes,
remastering. And there was the fellow was saying there was one guy that wrote, and he had so many different themes on this one album that you recognize. And one of them, it was this 15-minute classical piece. And he said, I always remember, he said, because the people that were doing it at the time, they said, oh, you've got this section in the middle, it's about a minute and a half long.
Right.
And it sounds totally different to the rest of the track. And he said, I said, oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. It'll get used. It'll get used. It won't be a problem. It'll get used. Anyway, it became News at 10.
Unbelievable.
It was News at 10.
Wasn't the
that was it, and that was the middle of the song for this particular.
Wow,
and I mean, how much is that worth? You know, it's like Neighbours. You know, you write the theme tune to Neighbours or EastEnders or Coronation Street.
That's right, Barry Crocker there.
Yeah, well, worth a fortune.
Definitely. Oh well, yeah, right in the right business there. I know that for sure. But we're going to talk about your brand new single, which is absolutely fantastic, The Wedding Day of Eliza May. Now, it's a wonderful song and it's very catchy. Is there a personal story behind it?
Not really. And if it was autobiographical, I'd be quite a sad bloke.
Yes.
But No, I wrote the song, and I had the title of the song, and I had the riff, the main riff, and I couldn't really nail the rest of the lyrics for some reason, and so I put it away for a bit, and
Yeah.
then when I got it back out, everything just seemed to sit into place, and it was just a thought that I had of a in sort of folk acoustic music, you get a lot of songs from small villages, small towns, and small,
Yeah.
that kind of village life way of thinking. And the
Yes.
whole point, I could just see him, this fella, with the girl of his dreams, and he's working his socks off, to buy a ring, to ask the love of his life to marry him. And of course, he spends too much time working and too
That's
much time
right.
earning money that he loses the opportunity, and she goes and marries somebody else, and but he gets invited to the wedding, which of course is a bit of a kicker. But
It is, yes. And of course, everyone will have to check that out on YouTube as well. The video is absolutely wonderful.
yeah, thank you.
The wedding day of Eliza May. As soon as I watched the video as well, I thought that's a lovely. It's a nice, touching story there. And maybe some people do work a bit too hard,
Yeah, absolutely,
and you let moments pass you by. So I think
absolutely.
everyone needs to just slow down a bit and
Absolutely.
just.
Well, that kind of led on to the kind of calm, title for the album, and it's a little bit like you take care of the people that you love in life, and you spend time with those, and you look for those moments as opposed to working like a lunatic, which so many people do these days. Um, I've been doing a song recently called "The Shepherd."
Yeah.
It's a really sad tale. It's about they're deciding whether or not they should bring the harvest in,
Yeah.
or and she's pregnant, and should they bring the harvest in because it's going to rain, and she's
Yeah.
always saying, go and do the harvest, because if you don't, it'll fall and then you'll lose it, and this, that, and
Yes.
the other. And of course she takes the attention off herself, and well, I won't go into too much details because it'll bring you down. I don't want to.
Indeed, but you'll definitely need to check out the album because A Kind of Calm is out now. And are there any other standout songs that you could mention from the album?
I really loved the Eliza May song, and making that. Also, there's a song called Old Will,
Yes.
which is I really enjoyed making that. It's a song about totally fictitious, but it's about a young man who has a family, but he gets press ganged into working on the ships, and he gets pulled away to sea, and it's his plight to basically getting back to his family and his daughter.
Right.
And it's kind of folk prog in a way. It's quite a long old tune, but I really enjoyed that. Lark and Grey, I think that's going to be our next sort of flagship song. I'm a keen fisherman, and I love fly fishing, and it's I was really pleased to have made that, because it's close to my heart, that kind of thing. And it was kind of set off by a fella called Davey McPhail. He has a YouTube channel,
Right.
and he ties all his own flies, and he's
Right.
an absolute master at it. And he's got a very soft southern, a very soft Scottish accent,
Right.
and because of that, he sounds a little bit like Mrs. Doubtfire. Check him out, check him out. But he's such a brilliant, a master at fly tying. And
Hello, me dearie.
aye, that's right. And he said, there's two flies you need in your bag, and one's a grey duster, and the other was a lark and grey. And then the old song floats past. You think, oh,
Yes.
it's beautiful.
Excellent. Beautiful. Well, we'll have to check those tracks out definitely on
Yeah.
the brand new album, A Kind of Calm, which is out now. Now, the vinyl revival is upon us, so can I ask you, what is your favourite record you've ever bought, and what track would you play for me if you had a turntable beside you right now?
Right. Okay. I think I've got two there. One of the very first records that I listened to was Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, the whole album. And my favourite track off of that was, two actually. Only Living Boy in New York,
Yes.
and Baby Driver,
Oh yes, they're
which
absolutely
I love, and I
fantastic.
love Kathy's song from them as well. And but also when I got into rock before I got into the Romeo's Daughter, um, I I I went out and I was listening to Top of the Pops, and Rush came on,
Right? Yes.
and the song Tom Sawyer,
Yes.
and I went
Yes.
straight out and bought Exit Stage Left by Rush, and I put it on the turntable. I had no idea what to expect. It fricked the life out of me. I'd never heard such heavy guitars, and I loved it. And at the end of Tom Sawyer, there's one of those massive drum fills. It was on Top of the Pops, but it was the live version. So it was the one from Exit Stage Left. And when
Right.
the guitar finishes, and as it finishes, you think, God, the volume that must have been at, and it just stayed with me ever since. So yeah, if you want something nice and easy going, Only Living Boy in New York. But if you wanna rock it
Thrash.
off, then Tom Sawyer, Rush.
Excellent. Yeah, it's probably had it on. Had an amp which went up to 13.
Oof,
Remember
yeah.
those?
Yeah, I do. Spinal Tap Zone.
That's right. Excellent, excellent. They're great choices. Now, do you have any future projects you could tell us about?
Future projects. I'm in the throes now of writing another acoustic album. So I'm hoping that this time next year it will be around. So that's my plan. I've just finished an album for the BBC. An
Right.
acoustic album for the BBC. That was really good. Romeo's put an album out which was called Slipstream, and that was put out a year ago, and that's done really well. And so we've got a few gigs coming up. I've got a lot of gigs coming up, acoustic gigs coming up because June, July, August, they're quite quiet. It becomes a sort of festival time of year, and
Yes.
I'm sort of slowly building up my gigs. So I've got a few over the summer months, but quite a few gigs are penned from September on. So they're all listed on my website, which is craigjoynermusic.com, and they're all listed on there. So hopefully it'd be lovely to see some people there.
Yeah, it'll be fabulous. We'll look forward to coming along and seeing you, Craig. Now, on your website, has it got a link to all your social media as well?
It has. It's all listed at the top. It's all listed.
Fabulous, fabulous. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to believe this, Craig
Yeah.
Joyner. We have run out of time.
Oh,
So, it's been
it
wonderful.
flew past, I can tell you, Phil.
Yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for coming on the show. And would you like to come on again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime.
So I haven't frightened you away.
Not
Excellent. Well, finally, Craig, would it be possible for you to introduce your latest single, The Wedding Day of Eliza May, taken from your brand new album, which is out now, called A Kind of Calm?
Thank you very much, Phil, for having me. This is my new single, The Wedding Day of Eliza May, on the album A Kind of Calm. Thank you for listening.
Craig, thank you so much and all the best. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. All the best.
Cheers, Phil.
Take care now.